Good morning, everyone. It's a Friday morning here, and I'm just gonna dive right in. Working on the install for the process. Let me talk to you a little bit. So, working on the install, we're creating 3D internet. We're working on a process that'll let you set up and have your first 3D website running within 5 minutes. So, yesterday we were working on the community, which is the scene, and today we're working on putting your first building into that community. So we're gonna trip our way through it and make sure everything gets done the way it should. There's a couple adjustments to what I did yesterday, and we'll see what we can do with that. But yeah, so that's where we're heading. That's where we're going. So sounds good. And let's see. Here we go. I was in the middle of getting rid of a couple things that we no longer need, so let me clear out a couple of these different screens. And let me switch over to, let's go to the code page. There we go. So it's a coding day, coding time, and basically I had some bunch of functions in here so that I could host websites for people, and if they paid for a year, it would automatically have expiration dates and everything else. But I decided I'm going to move that into a module, a downloadable plugin at some time. So basically I pulled out the code and the fields that were tracking that. So it's just another cleanup process in the mix. Couple other things. Let's see. The one thing I want to adjust from yesterday's is when we create a new community, one of the things we do, in fact, let me close this because I already saved some changes and I want to make sure I'm doing this only once. But one of the things that we do is I have a choice of, let's see, I have published domain, which is in all the tables, and then I have domain name. I don't think I need domain name in this context because published domain would be where this particular community is located, and you can host multiple domain names on your server. So, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and notice also the default words are 3dwalktheweb.com. That won't be your website, that one's mine. So I got a couple cleanup things here I'm going to do first. One of them is we're going to tackle the big issue of domain name and see if we can't clean up the references that come from the ones that are popping in from this particular place, the community. So we don't need it in community because in all the other tables, let me just show you, in all the other tables what we did was we have building name, then we have published domain and published name. So there's no reason for the redundancy of domain name then published domain. It's either being shown as a particular website or it's not by default. And that doesn't mean you can't web alias other names to it. That just is the core one where it exists. So gives you a little bit of choices of what the default settings are. So now let's see, when we search for domain name we find 210 hits. So yeah, we've got a few of them. Okay, now I have to decipher which ones are the actual domain name and which ones am I pulling the see, published domain. Those ones are fine, that's where I'm talking about. And this particular one is part of building search select. Okay, so that's not even using the other version. That's not published domain is there. Let's see. That's the building, so that is the correct one we want. We do not want domain name. Here's the one for community in that same table. Now, what I want to do is, because I did not set published domain here, let's see if we can clean this up a little bit. And I'm going to do this very carefully on this step because I have a couple different fields that I'm using that I don't necessarily want to keep. I've got to make sure that I don't kill domain name where it's reading in the domain that you browsed under, opposed to the settings in the database of which are the default for particular websites. So cleaning up a little bit of stuff here. Notice it's coming from community domain name. That is not going to be what we're going to be putting here. So first things first, I need to follow this process through because I'm writing this to communities, and in this particular one, what we have is we have domain name, published name, but we do not have published domain. So you can see how it became confusing because on building and thing, we have published domain. So I'm going to, first of all, let's go this approach. Let's find all of these, because this one's going to be the one that's not correct. So we have it there, and we're going to be changing these to, let's see, where am I? Okay, this is the one I'm looking at right now, and if I change that to publish domain, okay, and that means we also have to change it here, which is reading in that value, and here, that's that one, just to go through these. Then we have two more versions of it. We have one here and we have one here. So that takes care of the page that's originating them. This particular one, okay, this is when you actually work with the community. I'm going to change the way this kind of does it anyway, so I don't want to, okay, we'll change it to publish domain now, because I believe, we're going to have to search and see if there's a published domain already in there. I'm going to leave that open for a minute. Okay, this particular one, I want it to go to published domain because that's the new one we're doing. The other part is when I ran the building one, I set it to Z domain name, which is your default domain that you created, and it loads it. So in this particular case, we're not going to read it from what we draw from the other side because it's going to be wrong anyway. And now we're going to grab this back and get it into a couple places here. These we're writing, notice we're writing these to the communities page, and that's the one we did change. So notice there's also published domain name, so we have another name of another property there that we have to clean up. But we're gonna get these straight. So this one is going to communities again. This one is reading the domain name from, or it's setting the domain name in the community, which means we do want that to be the new version. And we're gonna end up doing a little something with this between buildings, communities, and things. I have a feeling we're gonna catch a few of the different pieces. Okay. We're just going to clean up some of this stuff, and this part has to be revisited. After I get a couple more steps down the line, I'm going to be revisiting this because there are some different pieces here that, well, the way it publishes domains and the way it does it, like I said, I was hosting before, now it's your domain that you're hosting, so I've got a little bit of cleanup in the code, but I will be walking through those levels as we do this. But in the meantime, we're going to finish cleaning up these and make sure that they're all saying publish domain. Okay, and there was the one back here. We have pub domain name. I want to find out where that one is. Like I said, handful of cleanup little things. We'll be doing some more work on this area later on. Publish domain, add your domain name. Let's see what this form's doing. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to leave that, well, we're going to say new publish domain, and I'm purposely making it publish domain so that when I search for it, when I'm fixing these things, it will actually all come up and I can definitely find it easy. So, okay, so what I did was I've just changed those to new published domain, and then I changed these other ones to pub domain. Okay, so now find domain name and find in files. Let's tackle this and clean it up. I'm trying to clean these up as early as possible because as I'm doing it, once I clean them up, then I'm testing the site. So the sooner I clean up any name changes or compilations of names or anything of that nature, the sooner I do it, the faster I'm going to be able to work the whole thing without having a problem. we can test it and perfect everything as we go. So now see here, we've got connecting grids. This domain name is not even plausible. If I was going to pull anything in this area, I would do the publish domain, and there's two pieces. It's publish domain and publish name. So if I'm going to look up and fill a value into those areas, that's what they would be. Now the same thing happens under building and thing, so I want to repeat those, and we'll see if we actually need them or use them in this particular case, but for now I want to be consistent in my naming. That's the goal of this little level that I'm doing right now. So those are correct now. We're going to that's not going to change. That one doesn't change. That one doesn't change. Just tracking my way through. Some of these were code on certain pages, and because they're on a particular page, I already know what they're pulling and what they're doing, and so there's no reason for me to change certain ones. The function for publish domain, I'm not definition edit domain name. I'm not going to dive into the publish domain function yet because that's one of them I'm going to be looking at later on. Web aliases, domain name. See, in web aliases, this is another case where I have domain name and then I use it. So I should rename that one also. This is going to make it easy because what I'm doing is I'm trying to make it where domain name is used of the one that actually comes in and they're browsing under, and then I'm using pub domain for the whenever I'm working with somebody that whenever I am setting the default names that they get browsed under. So kind of dual purpose, two different directions. So some of these are being updated, like here, list community domain names. This is where I'm pulling the domain, the aliases. That I'm trying to decide if that's a pub domain or that's the name they come in under when they use a web alias. So I don't necessarily want to change that one. I'm going to leave that one alone for the moment, only because of complexity of all the things I'm trying to change at once here. Now this is the one I do need to change. Community has, okay, so this would be publish domain, and I'm not going to worry about adding the fields for the other values yet, because when I pull this connecting grid, I don't know if I'm even reading those in just yet. So I'll get to it when I'm working with the domain names and publish stuff, which is probably going to come up here really quick since I want to release this by the end of the month. So it's just for a later day. Can only do so much at once. Right now we're fixing the community version of domain name. We're going to change that to publish domain, just so that we're a little bit more consistent on which one we're using and when. This is the default domain name for whenever you set up a new community. You can tell it what default name to come up under. Then there are the domain names when I'm working with, okay, I'm not going to rename those at the moment. Say domain name, publish domain name. See this? Okay, that's fine. I'm not going to work with that yet. I'm just catching the main field names. I'm making sure that we don't have any current issues with this stuff. Okay, so web aliases, I'm keeping that one, but what's this one? This one is in communities, and that's the one I'm changing to publish domain. Well, we have publish domain. Okay, well then we are getting rid of one of these fields. I'm going to leave it as default blank. And see, like I said, we're kind of doubling up on what it's doing. Now we clean that up. We only have one of them, and it's the right one. publish domain, then publish name. Publish name is the name part, so if we do a slash whatever, that's what name gets used for the publish name. Publish domain would be the domain name that it's coming in under. Okay, so then these are correct because these are the domain names that are being set in iframe. That's the one you're browsing under. This is also correct. These are the new classes that I created, so I already know we're working with the correct ones in those places. This is where it gets a little tricky and I need to double check which one I'm working with. And this is import community and it's passing in the domain name, so we're okay there. This is the name of the domain name for the function. Let's see, we're passing it in. Okay, the next one is here. Web alias, we're going to keep that one the way it is right now. And order by domain name, these are pulling web aliases, so we're good with that. Like I said, it's a little tricky, but I am trying to clean up the right ones. So web aliases are fine. And order by, we're good on that one. This is domain name, and it is being passed to web alias. We're good. Domain name there and domain name there. It's the web alias and the domain name. I haven't decided if I need both of those yet, but for the moment we're going to keep them both in place. Like I said, I'll be revisiting that soon enough. In web aliases we have domain name, so that one is correct. Then we have domain name here, and that's correct up to 284. Let's see what this one is. Am I working with web aliases? Yes, so that one's good. And we're passing in the name here. Okay, next one. Communities, this is where publish domain has been changed. Domain name, I'm going to change this to publish domain just so we are consistent about what we're pulling in. Okay, and that gets... Okay, see, I did it once again. In communities, I have domain name and publish domain, and I'm using them the same way. I'm passing in the same exact value both times. So obviously, we only need one of those two to be set, and the other one is a duplicate field. So now we fixed that one. And let's see what's here. I'm first checking to see if it's what table it's in, and if it's in the communities table, then I'm fixing them. So this is publish domain, and we're going to change that to Z publish domain name, or publish domain. And notice, okay, authorizations are fine. Let's just walk up this function since I'm going to run into that another time here anyway. It's still in the same function. Select these from communities. So as I said before, we do not have we're going to do publish domain as publish domain. That will get us the correct value back. And domain name is publish domain there. See, we're doing an insert into based on a select statement, so that will get us the right values there and put them where they belong. And let's see, that got me to line 94, so what's the next one? Okay, we have publish domain here, which is going into domain name in communities, so we're fixing that one, and it's publish domain. Okay, and the last part of this is I passed domain name here. It is now publish domain because we used it throughout this function, and I knew I was in the same function. I just happened to remember that one. Okay, so next place, domain name equals domain name. This is the one we're actually passing the domain name, but I believe we're going to check that in a minute because I have a feeling that, okay, we're going to close all but this so it ends up being the first one I'm working on. That I want to see again because I believe I just changed the name of this, even though it is the domain name we're pulling in. I'm going to make sure the reference to that name is where it's supposed to be. So, but that is the domain name. So I don't want to change that one. I just want to validate I'm doing what I'm supposed to with it. Domain name for User authorizations. This one is bringing up select uploads, communities. Where is, okay, publish domain is here. Where? Oh, select everything, which is getting all the values from communities. Publish domain is one of them, and domain info is going to be this, so I know it's going to be publish domain and not publish name. There's publish name there. I'm going to do a little cleanup of directions just because we know what we're dealing with. And then notice I have site name here, which site name is going to be another thing that in this case happens to be community name, but I have other directions where site name is, yeah. I'm going to double up on this because domain info is one thing, but community name is brought back there. Now we have the published name under community info also. This will take a little cleanup later on, but for now it won't break something, which is my main concern. Clean up and break some. We don't want to do either of them, so we're going to make sure we get them both in the right place. Okay, so those are correct now for domain name info. So domain info is another one I'm going to search and double check. And the rest of these, we're going to see where domain name equals, that's web aliases, we're good. These are all correct. And most of these are dealing with setting the domain name in the actual program. So I'm in great shape through the rest of that one, but I'm going to leave this open because there's two things I want to check in there. So we'll create that as we go. Let's see, publish domain, I'll be working on that section. Not too worried about that. Publish domain, these are button names. Publish domain name in the community publish file. We'll double check and run that when we're cleaning up that area. Community has def edit domain name. Okay, this particular page is the community setting. I will be double checking that. We'll walk through those when we get there. And domain name, this one is coming from web aliases, so we're golden. I did not combine any other tables. We have web aliases and authorizations, so that one is domain name. We're good with keeping that. Okay, and just mumbling along myself as I check these things. Domain info is the one where I have published domain. I'm going to change that to, whoops, helps if I don't copy and paste the wrong thing. We're going to change that to publish domain there. That's one of the ones I'm fixing. Okay, and notice building name and building, yeah, see this one is pulling, this one's pulling the building from what I can see. We're grabbing the building. If we're getting it from buildings, then publish domain and publish name are going to be part of the building info. So I am going to, I'm just doing a little cleanup on the order that it happens here. I'm just, if it always happens the same order, then there's a better chance that you'll have less errors. So I'm definitely working on making sure they end up in the right place here. See, buildings publish domain, and then there is communities, community access, and blank as domain name. See, this one is from, it would have been communities because these are meshed up. So domain name here in this case would be the community one, and that would be a community access right here, which is going to be blank right now because we're not bringing in the community. So I need to change that to community published, not name, published domain. Opposed, that's community published domain opposed to building published domain. So just so you kind of get the idea of the difference of the two. So here it'd be published domain, and and we are going to put, and it's a blank, but I'm still tedious about how it's going to pull these and how it's going to use them. We're also going to do under the community, it's going to have publish name, community publish name, and now when it brings up this particular function, it has blank as that. And I know this stuff is kind of tedious at times, but there's a method to the madness. By getting all these pieces in place, we don't end up with the wrong things in the wrong place. So select community, just domain name, we're going to change that to publish domain, and then we're going to say as community domain. Okay, and we're going to do one more line here, and this one's going to be publish name, and publish name. We're just retrieving a little more information than it did the first time. So when this down here, no matter which one it brings, it'll bring those two, and it brings a building publish domain and publish name. Actually, those are community. Okay, we're going to make sure. See, what's happening is this. It's doing select statement to decide which SQL command it runs. Then it comes down here and it puts the things in the various places that you need it to be. So publish domain and publish name are one thing, but then we have building publish domain and building publish name. And then the thing about it is I don't even have thing represented here, but yet I'm going to allow you to publish thing. Because of trying to get this out on the end of the month, I'm not going to publish things yet, but I know that that architecture is going to play a role in here as we go. So now if I have building publish name, that publish name, and community, and then I have just a blank publish name, the reason for that is publish name, domain, and publish name in this case is buildings because it's what I'm reading in. But community is blank. But I also want to be building publish name, so I'm going to alias the same thing as building publish domain so that I have some type of consistency and knowing which one's which. Just because I bring back building publish, or because I bring back publish domain and publish name, doesn't mean I know that it's a building, community, or thing at the time. So in this particular case, I'm doing both. I may eliminate that whole logic later on, but for now I don't want to. Oh, also site name, notice, is the building name. Site name could be the community name or the thing name. I know what I'm doing with that one. In the menu on the bottom left, I'm actually telling you which one you loaded. So by setting it as site name allows me to use that as what you're working with currently. So that explains a little bit of that stuff. Just if you've just joined me, just want to let you know that I am building 3D internet hosting sites so that anybody can host a piece of 3D internet. I'm going to release it open source sometime this month, so if you haven't yet, follow me so you know when I release it and you'll be able to download it. But it's a 3D CMS that lets you host or create and host 3D buildings and communities and things. You can do it in less than 5 minutes, get a 3D website up and running. And then if you've seen things like Ready Player One, where we have a bunch of people that have their own avatars and you come into scenes and walk around and interact with them, and they could be battle scenes, they could be 3D shopping or anything else like that, or any kind of game. Let's say you have a golf course or a bowling alley or a soccer field, any kind of game. People can create games, drop them in as plugins to this 3D community, this 3D product, and basically it'll host it for you, and then you load the plugins of whatever you want to run from your server, and it runs those kind of things. So instead of all of us individual developers creating complete 3D shopping experiences or 3D games and everything else, we'll have a platform that's already multi-user. It's already, everybody has their logins and their avatars, and it handles all that kind of stuff. And then it has a bunch of the basics of how we connect them up. But then you can build things like, I want to build just this piece of this game. Let's say I built a paintball arena. I could build the arena as a building, drop it into a scene. Now others can drop that same arena into their scenes. So it becomes very dynamic, very cool, very good way to share and create small bits of code, but yet the developers have a way to make money because you can create plugins that people can use and drop into their scenes. So developers can make money doing freemium offers, just like WordPress, but in 3D gaming scenes. So very cool stuff. That's what I'm working on. And with that said, I'm jumping back in, and I'm currently working on cleaning up a little bit of the stuff before we have to release it, doing a little bit of naming so that everybody gets the same experience and can tell the difference between what's going on here. I want to make sure that I'm just checking all the way things are named so that everything works as expected. Publish domain, publish name, so I already have community, but the one on this one I don't have is I do not have building, and so we're going to make sure that we get, these aren't, yeah, these are different select statements. Okay, so I'm going to say as building publish domain, and I'm just making sure it brings back the value in this case. Since I'm bringing the community back this time, building has no function in it, so I'm making it read back the values as just blank so that it has these fields when I read them down below. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing up here. We have publish domain, which are communities, and publish domain here, but notice we also have buildings. So in this particular case, communities domain name, we're going to change that to publish domain, and that's where we've got 3 of them. So we have publish domain here and publish domain there. So this one's going to be as community publish domain, and we're adding one field to this, and we're bringing in publish name as community publish name. That's the name parts for the URL. So after you do the domain name, you can alias different names so that you can read different communities and then land within a certain building within that community. So if you just join us, we're creating 3D Internet, and this is going to be a hosting solution, a 3D CMS that lets you build and create your own plugins and also download other plugins as other developers create them. And right now I'm working on creating I'm working on setting it up so we can have a open source download by the end of the month. So that's what I'm working on. Yeah, so getting a couple different pieces in place so that we can publish them out. I have this built up as 3d.walktheweb.com, and it's my testing grounds and where I tried a bunch of stuff. So I do have a working hosted solution for this, but what I'm doing is I took a copy of that, I stripped it down to the bare roots, and I've changed it so that I have a product that I'm globalizing with all the variables and making it real friendly for everybody to follow the code. And then I'm going to be releasing that sometime this month. But the idea is that if you load this host, you can host 3D websites. In less than 5 minutes, you can set up and have your own 3D website up and running. Now, by doing that, what I've done is this 3D CMS, I separate the objects into 3 different things. First, we have 3D communities, which are your scenes. So that's your land masses, your formation, your streets, your trees, your, setting up the city, setting up the communities and stuff, internet cities, And then we have 3D buildings. Now, they don't have to be a physical building. It could be an area that you want certain game logic to work. So when you walk over there, the game logic loads in as you walk towards it, and it unloads as you walk away. So that makes it very regenerative to being able to create 3D cities that load as you go. Instead of this loading up like a game, you go through a level and then you have to unload and load another level. So it's actually perpetual in the way it loads. Okay, so we have building, publish, domain, and we're going to do this one as building, publish, name. So now we have publish, domain. Those are telling you that you loaded a community. This is telling you the building's name because you're loading both in this case. And this one is the community's published domain and community's published name. So now I've grabbed all three of those for each one of the types of way that it could load up. I wanted to do that on purpose because we do need a little consistency in how they load and making sure that we have all the different parts in place. So, okay, we have, I moved it by copying and pasting and adding in some lines. So it shoved it downward. Here it is, making sure I didn't miss anything here. Those are the ones I've already fixed over here. They were right there. Okay, and this one should be the ones that I fixed on the top row there. We are good. This is domain info, domain name. Connect. That is reading in the actual domain name. That is not, that's being passed by a query string, so I don't have any need for any changes on that one. And these, let's see if they're which table they're dealing with. Community, okay, so in here we have published domain and okay, so each one of these are actually going to be published domain. This is the preferred name of that community when you browse it, so that's why we're kind of cleaning these up as we go. There's a couple different things here. This particular one reads in the domain name that you actually browsed under if it couldn't find any settings for it. So that tells you why it's going under that route. This one, we do not have the actual, okay. We'll clean that one up in just a bit. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here. Publish domain, publish domain, publish domain here. Okay, we have publish domain here, there, and there. Gets me to 503, and that takes care of those in that file. Now, these are coming from this huge statement that brings in things from different places, different ways. It's checking for things underneath, buildings underneath, okay, all kinds of cool and interesting things. So I'm not going to dig too far into that one just yet because some of these things will be handled when I work directly with them. Okay, so this one is that, and row published domain, we're not calling it that anymore. So see, select everything C1, those are communities. That name isn't going to exist anymore. It's published domain. We have domain and published domain. We don't need both of them. That's one of the things I'm getting rid of. Okay, so that cleans that part up. And let's see, line 27. Here we are with the web aliases, which in this case, web aliases are staying as domain names. So that's not one of the ones we're changing. Okay, these are, notice, published domains right underneath it. These are the community. We're dropping that one off. All we need is one published domain and one community, so let's fix that. Order by, and we'll call this published domain here. And we're going to make sure that, first of all, we have published domain next, so we don't need to call both fields. We're eliminating the one. So cleaning up code, like I said, we're getting rid of a field that we're no longer using because it tends to be a duplicate of something else. I think when I originally wrote it, it had different meaning, and because that's changed, there's no reason for us to keep both of them. Since I was running a hosted solution, it could be browsed as my hosted solution and as a name of whatever it was. Well, now that you're hosting it and it is your site, it is going to be your domain name. So there was no need for multiple duplicates. The other part is when I created the web alias table and let you alias other names that point at tables and bring up different websites, then it further the idea that you could just alias it there and you didn't need this whole other backbone behind it. So when I first wrote it, this was added. Now it's not even needed. So now that I've done that, I'm just cleaning up the references to it here. And we have published domain, which is how we're calling these. And that should fix it there. Now if we run into a couple more of them, they will have to trip up on us, and which be a fine thing for me. Okay, so I'm going to back up to here, close all to the right, and web aliases we kept, so we're good on that. We have community published name, which is, this is a whole check thing and has a whole process, and yeah, that's fine because of the SQL that it created in this statement. Select everything from web aliases, and then I have community published name opposed to building published name to thing published name, and notice those are in the actual table of web aliases, so those are good. There was one more here that when I did it, I thought, okay, we screwed something up and I'm going to double check it, and that was when I named the domain name here, I didn't just rename all these fields, did I? Let's find out. Does this still show up where it's supposed to? We have it there. Okay, nope, we're still putting it where we need to. That's all fine. That's a variable I passed to JavaScript as the current domain name. I can use it like here. I use it in the tracking which domain name they come from, so that we can do different things. That's part of the tracking, is part of the avatar multi-user platforms that I wrote into here. So we're good on that one. Okay, I just wanted to double check and do a quick search against that one before I move on. Now, we've cleaned up a ton of that stuff. We've probably fixed and broken a few things along the way, but okay, now community, we have published domain. We're going to use this name, but we're going to get rid of that one, and we're going to set this value to blank as a default. That doesn't mean it'll ever be default or that we'll leave it that way as we're writing them, but for now, that's the way it is. Okay, and we've eliminated the one column. That's the kind of stuff that I've been doing. I don't want redundant things like this one. That's going to take hours to get rid of, so I'll do that one offline. But texture, and then I have texture ID. When I first started doing this code, I was using texture as a path, and it was a physical path on a server. Now I do an ID, and everything's in the uploads table, so I know which item was uploaded, and so it's kind of redundant and something we don't need. Same thing with SkyDome. I did the exact same thing on that. So if I, for example, look up SkyDome, and you're going to see there's a bunch of these where it uses SkyDome. Okay, this one's not going to be that hard to get rid of, so I'm going to help it along. We're going to get rid of setting the path for SkyDome here. I don't need to write the path. The path is actually being read in, so once they pick an ID, I no longer need the path written. I'm going to do the same with texture since I'm here. I'm just thinking ahead. Okay, so that takes it out of that file. The next one, I'm going to bounce around a little bit here because the next one I want to do is this particular table, communities. I have SkyDome ID and then SkyDome here. And when I do this SkyDome here, it's going to trigger, do I even write it to the files? I would love it if I just dropped it already in the statements. And so far it's looking that way. because I have SkyDome ID and this one up here, line 33, I do not have it on line 33, I don't think. I highlighted it, so, oh, there it is. Okay, so I have to pull it from that statement. That may be the only one I have to worry about. That's importing a new community, so we're going to pull that because we're not using those values anyway. So here we go. We're going to get rid of SkyDome there. And I'm going to eliminate, well, let me do this backwards. Okay, so we have SkyDome there. I need to, we'll search SkyDome again once I get done with this process, but it's kind of important to backtrack certain pieces out, like when I'm changing this community. I have this T texture. I'm going to wipe that out of there too at the same time because I already know we don't want to use either of those values. Now I have import community. I'm going to bounce over to the other page that has import community. And we're going to eliminate the use of, we're going to get both of them here. I'm going to start with SkyDome. And I'm just going to highlight it first. And by doing that, if I come down through the code, first of all, I have texture, oops, and I have SkyDome. We're going to get rid of them there. And I'm going to get rid of texture and SkyDome here. And okay, there's no update version of this in here. It's all insert. So now, before I do it, we're going to take, first of all, this texture. Did I use it anywhere? No, it's gone. Good. Okay, and I think I got rid of SkyDome too, but notice by highlighting them, it's a quick way that your eyes can tell you, did you fully get rid of it, or is it lingering on? Same thing with SkyDome. That is not in use here, which is a good sign. Okay, come over here. Now I've done my part to get rid of both of those fields in the function itself. We're going to backtrack to communities, and I'm going to get rid of both of the fields going in here. We have gravity, we have texture ID, SkyDome ID, so I've already done those. Now I want to see SkyDome. I'm going to look for this field. So it's kind of methodically getting rid of the use of this. Notice that it is only the one without the word ID on it. So it's here, and we will get rid of that one. And the next one is right here. That's SkyDome ID. We're good to go with those. So we've gotten rid of SkyDome. The next one's ID there. We're good to go on that. Next one after that is I want to get rid of the other one, which is texture. Now we're going to run up with a bunch of texture ID also. So be aware there could be a lot of these. Oh, not too many. Texture ID, that one, and texture ID in this import is ID, notice. So we've already eliminated the use of this texture field, and that also means it's not writing anything to it from anywhere because we would have seen it. I already deleted it from here. That was the only place using it. Now it's gone. Now my coffee's getting cold. Okay, so that cleans out that one. Okay, backtracking to where we were on this. Find SkyDome. We're going to see that all references to SkyDome are either a function or they are the ID. and we're going to eliminate the use of the SkyDome without it right now. Okay, so we have SkyDome ID, that's perfectly fine. Sky Texture ID path, Sky ID, we're good. Whenever it's Sky Path or ID, those are good. Those are the ones we do want. That's what we're using coming from the database and everything. So that's why there's a little discretion of how we get the pieces into place here. SkyDome, okay. So here, I want to double check something. We have the ID and, okay, save SkyDome. Okay, so we're passing the ID back into it and fixing it, making sure it's all good. Okay, that was good. The next one, SkyDome function, we're good. SkyDome ID. Okay, see, like I said, I've already switched over to using SkyDome ID instead of SkyDome, so I don't expect too many conflicts with it. I just want to make sure that if we did, SkyDome textures ID, there we go, SkyDome texture, and this one is our import, which we just went through, so that's ID, we're good on those. And now our table definitions, yay, we get to eliminate SkyDome. I'm not going to eliminate texture just yet. I have some more double checking and searching to make sure we can delete that one. This one here, let's see, import community, and this one is ID. Notice we're good on both of those. That was the one we fixed a few minutes ago. That's why the page was already opened. And we're getting rid of under communities, SkyDome, and here, blah, blah, blah. Let me leave that. We're going to get rid of those references, but I can't delete it from the table until I know that we've eliminated all use of it from the code. So I will be coming back to texture. I have to search the word texture, which is another reason I don't like it, is because I used a name that was too global, and it's going to show up in a lot of files and a lot of references, and I basically need to completely clean those up and get rid of them. See, look, I'm actually returning SkyDome path. So this is where I'm bringing down SkyDome path based on what it pulled from the database with the uploads files. So because it's pulling it from uploads, we don't need the name in two different places. It was kind of redundant to write it in both places. So those are all good. SkyDome path, okay. And we are not using SkyDome in any of those. Like I said, it's obsolete because of the changes I did in the way the code works. And once I get rid of this reference to it and this reference to it, then we no longer have that being in use. Okay, SkyDome is eliminated, and we technically can come in here and delete it from the table. We'll reload these tables using our install process anyway to double check things. I had a feeling I already made some changes, and because they were already in the table, it couldn't duplicate those same changes again, which is fine. That's one of the things we're doing. Okay, this one, delete the selected field, apply, it's gone. And now we're going to tackle texture. Let's get it out of here. I don't want texture to be anywhere in the code anymore, so find in files. It's going to be ugly because everything has a texture. Let's start by seeing how many references we get to the word texture. And there are 23,000 references to the word texture. That's what I thought. That's why I'm going to first scan going down the page. A lot of these are going to go very quick because I've already changed names around them in my code, and I've tried to get rid of the use of the word texture in most places, so a lot of these things are going to actually go pretty easy. But to speed things along, the first thing I'm doing is, if they're not part of my, let me set this a little bigger here. Okay, so if they're not part of my code, then those are the first ones I want to get rid of. I don't need to worry about what Babylon did with it or any of the other products. And I'm coming up on that. Oh, there's some things like these that don't have anything. They're help files. We're going to have to double check all those. See, I also use texture as a covering type, which means you're putting a texture on the surface. So there are so many legit reasons to have the word texture, and there are reasons not to. And I have to double check with my eyes and eliminate only the handful of them that don't apply. It's not going to be as bad as you think, 23,000, but a lot of it I can tell from looking at here that I don't need them. So I'm going to be going from bottom to top. And let's see, now we're in Babylon Custom Engine. That's what I was looking for. We're going to eliminate these areas where it's not my code first, so that I'm only looking at and modifying things that are my code. And there are a lot of them, like I said. There's texture references. Some are meant to be, some are not, there's all kinds of them here. But as you can see how fast I'm going through this, it's not going to be too much different when I'm going upward through this, because there's certain things I need to adjust and ones that I don't. Yes, we're cleaning up some code and cleaning up some naming processes and eliminating a database field that happens to be a very common name, which was a horrible thing to do in the first place. One of the reasons why I am getting rid of it and making sure it's not going to be used. Okay, so first of all, these refraction textures, all these are good. These are all good, and we did not use any of the others in there. We're good on that file. Those are all good. Texture ID is always good. Texture, this is telling me the object definition, which is good. Covering name texture has all the different texture parts. Covering texture, those are all good. Okay, these are good. Like I said, I can go through this pretty quick. I know which ones we need to change, and there's a certain format. So if I don't see that format, then we're good to go. If later, if I'm testing and I missed one, we'll catch it at that level. But at this time, we shouldn't have it because it's not even in the object definition anymore. I've already removed it from there. So there's a good chance that I've already made it obsolete in the code as I was going. But the whole idea is that I need to double check real quick and move through this rather quickly. We are working on open source 3D internet. We're going to make it downloadable by the end of the month and go open source with it. It's a framework for creating 3D websites, and it's also allows you to, like a CMS, for people that do not have a lot of programming knowledge, can create their own 3D websites and maintain them. But if you have 3D knowledge, the cool part, or actually if you have programming knowledge, then the cool part is you can create plugins that work with this technology. Just like you do WordPress plugins, you can do WalkTheWeb plugins to create 3D animation and all kinds of cool stuff. So just reminding you what we're actually doing here. And I'm just going through this code rather quickly because there's patterns to the code, and I can also tell when it's something like here, which is, okay, so graphics, texture is fine, and backup ID, okay, we're good on those. Just making sure. It looked a little funny the way I wrote that one. I'm making sure we didn't use any of the fields that are places where I'm going to eliminate this one. Those are all good. If we get through this section, I think I'm going to be good through the rest of them, but it's good for a glance to make sure that I did not use one of these in the wrong terminology or wrong piece. And so far we're looking good. I think what I did was I've eliminated it in most of the code, and basically I'm not actually using it anymore anywhere, so I'm not reading it in, I'm not working with the value, and I just didn't delete the field from the table yet. So to make sure, I'm going a quick glance through the code and seeing that I didn't that I can delete the field from the table. So it's working our way through here. I figure we're already about halfway through. These are all good. Texture path, those are good. Texture ID are good. See, because I changed the word texture path is how I started using the code. That's why I think I'm in good shape, because I already wrote the code that did all those pieces. These are creating textures using the Babylon objects. That's why I'm able to browse through these pretty quickly. Also the same formatting each time. I can see detect the pattern in what I'm looking through. So basically most of these are looking good so far. And okay, video, textures video, texture ID, okay. I'm checking them pretty quick, but at the same time, I do know what I'm looking for, and some of these patterns just do not meet. I already know what file this is because of the pattern, and I also know that we're not setting any of them in here because we have texture ID and texture path. See, I've already eliminated the use of it through that file. Add mold lifts, okay, going through this one. We're doing this rather quickly, and the good news is because we're doing it quickly because I've already done a lot of this code and made sure it wasn't being used. I know which one this setup is. This is all the, okay, texture path and IDs. That one had to do with the mixed maps, so you can have mixed maps with bump maps of various colors and different shades, and you can actually blend different textures all into one. It's kind of a cool feature. It takes a little longer to load than if you did it natively in Blender, but it still allows a lot of freedom in how you create your different maps and what you do with them. I'll do some tutorials on that later on so everybody can see different ways of using it. Covering texture is fine, texture ID is fine, so all those are good. And I'm coming down to the nitty-gritty here. We're coming up on the end of it. Video IDs, okay, so those are all looking good. Yeah, I've been doing this a long time, you can tell. I also am familiar with my code. I've been working on it for years, so I know what sections of the code I'm actually glancing at, and if anything triggers my mind to take a closer look, then you'll see me click on it, but until then, I'm familiar with where these are going and what they're doing, so I already know which sections I've rewritten and which ones could be an issue. Notice those are all IDs and paths. The very top line was a covering, so we're good with those. So like I said, I believe I've got them all. I just wanted to make sure I'm not trying to, well, molds do not have these in use anymore. So these textures should not be in any of the molds pages. See, these are all various bump maps and IDs. Okay, so we're good on those. And we're almost done with this section. And texture ID, see, save DOM texture is the function name, the button name. We're not passing any particular texture ID in here. The import community we already looked at, and I already got rid of it there. And we're down to if we're pulling any fields from the database, or if we are pulling them, okay, those are good. See, I've already done them in so many of these files, thing molds, and okay, this is where it gets a little dicey. Okay, I'm going to come back to table definitions in a second. This is where community molds are good. I'll tell you why in a minute, but here's one. We're going to, we're going to get to this file, and this is a row called texture, and we do not need that row texture, and we do not need to insert it into this line. See, this is the insert into, and it has that in there, so we got rid of that. We're no longer going to search for texture here and retrieve it from something else. And that gets rid of that. We have a couple more here. Okay, this one. Oh, wait, undo that. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth row down is a covering. Okay, we're good with that one. And texture here is a texture going into an insert into, and the select part here is Z texture right there. We're not going to load that, and we're going to get rid of texture. See, if whenever I can see that it's in in an insert statement, I always have to bounce both sides and make sure it's good to go. Okay. And we have one right here. We're going to get rid of this. We're not bringing in that Z texture anymore. And we're not going to use this. And just to make sure there's no more texture words up there. Okay, now the reason I didn't do this file yet is because it depends if we, well, we have two pieces here. Table definitions, blah, 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 blah. Down here, I am inserting into values different things. You know what? I am not inserting into the tables. I'm not inserting into these tables, so I think we're good. Thing molds, we're not automatically loading thing molds from the start. We're loading them as a process after the fact. I may have been in better shape than I thought on that because the other day I removed a field from the uploads table. Well, I have about 100 uploads or so that I'm giving everybody, no, 65? No, 144 uploads that I give everybody as default uploads. They account for things like stock images and, you know, they're different things. But, okay, so building molds. Building molds, we don't need texture. Why were there 4 references to that? We have this one, which was communities. Communities does not need that because of the community, and none of the molds need it. So texture was only in communities and in the molds. Texture wasn't needed in either one of those places anymore, so that's what I've been removing. Okay, so this one should be thing molds. And of course there was one for building molds up here, probably above that. Right here should be building molds. Okay, got them in all. Okay, so all of that cleanup, hopefully I didn't break anything, but that one was a necessary evil. We're gonna see how well I did on that right now. And we're gonna see if we can't create a couple things on the fly. And okay, yeah, we're good with all these. Okay, so I've been through all these. I already know we're not using any more of those in here. Did I check them all? Texture. Why did I close a couple of those? Okay, so let me back up to, you know what, I'm going to double check a couple more references here. I thought I went all the way up, but for some reason, when I hit things recover, ground settings, okay, I want to back up a couple bits here. I'm just double checking some things. Did I do these? Okay, so I did do all these. Thought I did them all, just double checking a couple things, spot checking. Those are all good. Okay. Well, 23,000 of these, I think I did all right. Okay, those are all good. These are all good. We do not have any of these without a reference. And I did communities, so that one's all gone. No, I didn't. See, that's why I was double checking, because I had a feeling I didn't finish the set. There's one right here. Okay, and then I have one right here. Okay, that gets me through communities. Bump maps, paths, okay, and all those are good. Okay, I've lived through these pages. That's the one I was suspicious of, but I took care of it. And community molds, those are all good. We've already rewrote that process to be exactly what it needs to be. Okay, so I've eliminated those. Let's go ahead and do a run through and see how we do. So the first thing I'm going to do is we are going to take this complete and drop all the tables. Now I'm going to run the program, which takes me back to here, and we should get it right from this point. Okay, so I'm going to and we have a additional at WalkTheWeb.com, and we'll start with 3D test site. We don't need a Google Analytics ID at this time. We're going to click save, and that's going to create our tables, and now we have the search for different communities. I'm going to select one of these. Oh, another thing I want to do, if it gives an error, I want to be able to see it. Oh, unexpected already. Uncaught syntax. Let's see what's going on here. Uncaught syntax, that means we already lost a script. More than likely it didn't load. Admin PHP, what the heck is... Okay. Admin PHP, it took me to that page but gave me this. Okay, let's see what's going on. I'm going to look and see. First of all, I don't know which server we hit, so okay, it doesn't look like those, because it would be today's date with the code, so it's not number 8, it's number this server. And is there anything that popped up here? Okay, let's track this down. I need to fix that error before we move on. So we're going to bring this back up. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to refresh this page, and I want to see, okay, uncut syntax, invalid or unexpected. Wow, that's like right off the top. Usually that means there was a code error here or here. And in this case, it's not showing me either of those, which means it's something else. Let's figure it out. Okay, this could be a number of things. Let's shrink this down. Time to dig in and find the problem. Let's go to uncut syntax error. But it's not telling me. Line 1, admin setup. So let's see the admin page. Let's see if something hosed or changed on my admin page. Okay, so line 1 is that. That's not an issue, so that's not where it's coming in. Let's remark out some stuff. See if we get the page to come back without errors, and then see what it is. So let's do that first. Okay. I'm just trying to get to a point where it doesn't have an error. So let's remark out that, and I have a feeling that's where the error is going to show up. This shouldn't load anything but a blank page. Okay. So we already know that the error is in the initializing of that page. So Let's go find out what's in that page and see where it gets to. Knit session. Okay, in here we have, okay, let's see what we have. When it initializes this code, it actually jumps down here and then it does check host. So we're going to do a little bit of undoing first before we do loading. In fact, you know what? Let's do this one step at a time. Let's get it to load this file, then we'll put things back in so that we're not calling in any extra functions that we don't need at any one time. Okay, so is it initializing the class where it actually pops an error? And no. Okay, so we're initializing the class. Let's check host. And we did all those changes with domain names, so I'm expecting something to pop it here. Track page view, since that's next in line. Nope, nothing's happening there. It's fine because we don't have a ID packed, so I figured it wasn't going to do anything there. Okay, get domain info. This is where we changed all those things about the domain. And come on, are we? Nothing yet? Okay, nothing there. And check database. This is our big function for loading everything. So let's see what that one's doing. And there we go. Okay, we already know it's in our check database function. So let's go to that function. Oh, there's a faster way of doing this. I like to know the references of where I'm working, so it just becomes easier to do a quick search, global search across everything. Okay, check database. Now what I'm going to do is I want to know, let's see, let's do a glance through. We already know it's in this function. We already know it failed on something. We know we replaced domain name, which gets ugly in a few places. Okay, so we have quite a bit of things here that reference different pieces. And that should have thrown the error to there, but hey, not everything is as friendly as it likes to be. Let me try from here to here and see if we get the error. Page isn't working, 500. Okay, let me guess I did not. Oh, it helps. I didn't get it all the way to the beginning of the section. Okay, it's all the way to here is where that would be, which means wherever I wrote these, I have to kind of split them for now. That gets it to the next section, which is the next line, gets it to here. This is just a quick, easy way to tell it to not chop off the comments and keep commenting. I'll be going through a few of these as I go, so I want to make sure it's coming in and out all of that section. I have a feeling that it's the table definition one that did it, so we'll know that here in a minute. No error. So we want to include a little bit more. Let's first move that from there to there. Now we can include the first line and get each one of these as a different piece. And I want to make that, set up the database. Let's go to, that's a huge chunk. Okay, I have a feeling it's going to be in that part. But let's first fix we're going to have a couple lines here where I did this already, and we need to put this back in place. And there was another one up here someplace. There's a couple of them. Okay. Okay, so those ones are in place. We're doing all that. And I have a feeling that this is the part that's going to trip it. In particular, when it calls the table defs, I think that's what is failing. So, new database install, I can tell you right now. Refresh all. Tables got there. Okay. But it could have been putting data into the tables because I removed a couple field names. If we're dropping fields into the table, then we could be getting a little bit of mess from that. Let's try this to that far. I'd love it if this still worked. Nope, 500, which means I didn't. Where I remarked it out is at this level, and I'm trying to include that one. So let's go to there. Helps if I get everything at the right level. Oops. Okay. And we're doing a little bit of troubleshooting right now. Okay. Okay, so is it taking it all the way to there? Yes, which means that this one should be included too. Just got to balance out the if statements to where I'm remarking it out right now. Okay, fine. Okay, that one goes to right there. This one is going all the way to there. And did I miss anything up here? Okay. So all of this should work all the way to there. And then this should be remarked out all the way to there. That should be able to do that. This is only checking to see if the databases are there and the table the users are logged on and stuff, which we're not even at that step yet. So let me see, did we get a clean? Nope, we didn't. Okay, what did I miss? The easy way, let's go check our server. This one's spitting errors, I can tell already. Here it is. Okay, and it's online. Yeah, I had a comment that I didn't fix. Line 405. And this one, unexpected catch, line 726, that was before this. But line 405, I'm going to eliminate that. Working in that server. So line 405, I probably looked at it 3 or 4 times and still didn't fix it. So line 405 would have been here. Oh, yep, there we go. Thank you. That and that. Now we're checking just these lines, and we still have an error. But the good news is we can check and see where the error is. Okay. Oh, it didn't pop an error. Come on, refresh the page again then. There it is. And it is unexpected slash in line 415. I missed another one. I knew I was in trouble when I tried to move those, split those different comment tags. So 415, yeah, especially the ones that aren't on the beginning of the row. I didn't even glance for those, so I knew I was going to trip on those. But we have them now, I believe. So now let's see if this works without errors. Okay, we still have an error. Let's go check which one I missed now. Okay, what's it spin? Okay, line 429, missed another one. Gosh, I knew I was in trouble when I did those. Okay, so 429. I should have done it a little more systematically when I did it the first time, but because I didn't, there we go. And I still, when I glance at the code, for some reason, I don't see those. So those are the ones that are catching me. And notice we do not have the error. Okay, we're limiting it down because now it has to be showing up between one of these two statements. So let's move it from here to here. Come on, we got to find it someplace. It said there was an error. There we go, syntax error. Okay, it's in this little section. So, what did we miss? That runs to there. Okay, for each count, I get the S count. S count is still good. I'm just doing a quick glance, making sure my starting and ending, if, we have our parentheses that are supposed to be there. Those would have caught those errors and it would have told me exactly where they were. So I really doubt that's the kind of error that we hit. I don't see anything wrong here. What is going on? Okay, let's see if it passed an error for us, which would have made it nicer. Nope, it didn't. These are the fun ones to track down, aren't they? Okay, so if setup equals 0, global that, results equals this, and we're going to actual error, uncaught, invalid or unexpected token. That would make me think that it doesn't like checking the session variable. We're going to just remark out just that piece here, and we're going to find out if the code still works. Nope, it still breaks, so that's not where the problem is. That wouldn't be a problem. Let's see how it could. That is still there. Okay, just to do it, we're going to take out that. Now there's no logic here other than a couple if statements. Uncaught or invalid syntax. Okay, picking it apart further, I'm going to take it to there. Now the only thing left is the if statement there, and that statement there. Don't see why either one of those would have been an issue. But you know how it is. Is there something off to the right that I'm not seeing? No, sometimes that's the case. Okay, that got rid of it. You tell me how this and that statement, something here it doesn't like. Okay, so let's find out which one it is. Okay, I want to confirm that it happens when this is showing or not. So, should be an error. Yep. Gosh. Okay, there's nothing after the end of each one of these lines. No, those are there. That's running to there, and the if statement is there. Huh. What am I missing? It does not like when I set the value here. Why is that an issue? Z setup step. Z setup step. I copied and pasted that. And I'm just going to say equals 6. And these are all numbers, so they've been 5, they've been 0, and everything else. And the $sign, let's oops, $sign. We've retyped it now. There shouldn't be any extra characters in that line. And let's see if we can set it to 6 now. Wow, invalid syntax or unexpected. That usually happens after Um, that's an interesting one. Why is this statement bad? Guess it's going to be a long day. Let's do this. I want to copy that. And this goes there. This one goes there. This one goes there. I don't have any other explanation on that. And that one goes, these all should be right at this level. If statement all the way to the start. So there are no out of balance if brackets. Why is this single line kicking my butt? That is I don't get it. If this is so weird. This is so weird. See, watch. If I refresh this with that line in place, I get this error. If I uncomment something as simple as that, which is setting the setup step equals 6, then did you ever have one of those days? No error. And that doesn't error. I'm at a loss. Does it not like this variable name? Okay. I'm at a loss. Okay, let's find out. Okay, so all I did was type that line again, eliminating that one, and now, okay, there was some hidden character or something going on in that field that, yeah, that was interesting. Some hidden character or something in the field. So, yeah, beat that. How did I end up with that there? Don't know. It's gone. Site's going to work now, so okay, fine. It's a Friday. TGIF, everyone. Okay, so let's see if the whole thing works now like it's supposed to. And there's the page, and we have the uncaught syntax error. And I'm guessing that it's happening when this one comes through. Don't know why, but I copied and pasted them from the same place, and okay. Now it's just being a pain in the butt. Let's find out. Let's take this one. Okay, let's see if this works again. We're going to remark out this one. And here we go again with some weird character that got into the code. Oh, now it's doing it again. Don't. So if I remark out that line, something's doing something to my code, and I haven't figured out what it is yet. Okay, let's narrow it down again. Here we go again. Okay, Now I'm just not liking this at all. Now, if I remarked out both of those, why would it still... Okay, we're back to not having it on there. If I take that off and go to here, and refresh, that should be the one we fixed. Okay. Nope, we're back to an error. Okay, wait a minute. That was when it brought back the data. It's not here. It's the timing. That explains it. It's when it shows the other page. All this stuff is good. But what's happening is once I told it to go to the page, watch this. Let's see if I can get rid of that error by testing this and telling it not to run the community search. Nope. So let's see if it's part of the page that's being brought up. It is part of the page that's being brought up. Okay, so what are we bringing up? What are we bringing up? This domain name thing was something that I added, so let's tell it not to do that. And it works. Okay. This domain name is referring to this right here. It should either work or it should be blank. But why is that coming up an error? Let's figure that out. Okay, I don't have to increase those things back into there yet. Tracked it down. I know where the error is happening. Now we just got to figure out why it's happening. And let me take this domain name and let's build that out to the page. Let's see what happens when I do that. It should get the same error. No, it didn't. And it read the domain name. Oh, I know why. Okay, I got it. We're getting a syntax error because when I told it to do this domain name, I told it to put this on the page, but I did not put any quotes around it. So basically it was setting the domain name without quotes. Okay, that was a new change I did not too long ago, and now we're past that error. Okay, so just to go through everything, let's drop our tables, drop 10 at 27 tables, and we're going to check, are there any errors that are listed here? No, that's a good sign. We'll drop back to here, and we're going to refresh the page. So you're doing your install, and you get this stuff. Thank goodness I remember my name this time. Okay, I know that it took so long to fill out the form. Okay, getting that, we have no errors. Click here, we're loading the community. Boom, 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 boom. And so far so good. Our progress bar seems to be doing rather well. It's chugging right along, telling us that we're still working on something. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So far so good. And writing upload file images. could move those words down below the progress bar, because then it's telling you the step that it's doing when it actually shows the progress bar. Yeah, I could either way. Or I could give it more space in between so it looks like it's closer to the progress bar instead of the installing your first community scene. Not a big deal. Aesthetics we can always work on later. And here's the problem. We went back and we've got the community scene, which means something didn't right. So let's go into here. Let's check first for errors. There were no errors per se, but I can already tell it didn't write the community scene, so let's go check something with that. We have our tables, refresh all. Communities, I'm guessing this one's going to come up blank. Yes, it did. But did everything else? Okay, so we're getting other things. I know what happened, and it's because I changed it to publish domain, publish name, and I messed with that procedure, which I'm guessing has a flaw in it, so let's go check that. Okay, we need to look at two pieces for it. We have communities and this function right here. And we are passing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we're passing these variables back, texture ID, DOM ID, and all the way down to alt tag. Okay, community name, past name. I'm not passing anything to do with. Okay, so let's find it files. Okay, so this is where we're pulling this in. This is where it sets up what it's going to pull in. We have publish domain, which is now our domain name, which we're reading in and going there. Community name is whatever community name you pulled. Publish domain is not being written, not being read. So the first thing I want to check is, let's see what data we're getting back and make sure we're getting what we think we are. So here, let's bring this to here. And let's put in the community ID. Yeah, let's get the past community ID needs to be, how am I going to get that one? Templates, communities. And which one did I pick? I picked Small Island 3D Community. And we're going to get that back. Small Island, there we go. This is the ID I want. Let's make sure that nothing broke on this side. And we get the data back, so that's not the issue. We have domain name, published name. We do not have published domain, but that's fine. We're not using either of those to begin with. Hunt name. We're not using hunt name, we're using alt name. So let's fix that one. That's probably the field that it tripped on. We're going to make sure it doesn't happen again. Okay, so in here, go to community, bringing back the data, we're telling it what to bring. It has a hunt name here, which we're looking at as alt tag now. We're not calling it hunt name anymore. Yeah, it's probably blank, but when it didn't find the field, it already gave us a little scratch. Community info alt tag. See, that wasn't there. That would have caused everything we just witnessed. So let's see. Drop 25 tables. We're going back to the roots. None of this stuff's there. The table, whoops. Oh, helps if I'm in the right table. That's what we're reading from. Okay, so we have no more tables. We're good to go. And let's go here. Let's just reset the page so we know we came in just like off fresh and scratch. So it already created the tables. Then when I save this, it creates my user and moves on to the next step. I'm going to click on that one and going through the different pieces. I have it spitting out some stuff in the console log just because I want to track what it's doing and make sure I get to where I'm supposed to be in a certain amount of time. So everything looks good. Okay, moving on through it, and blah, 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 blah. 11:45, it's almost lunchtime, people. Let's do it till 12 and call it a lunch break, huh? Okay, let's see. It's installing. I love how the progress bar moves. We're looking good on that. I purposely stopped it at 80%, and then it finishes out when it completes it. And then we have our community again. So it did not write the community again. Let's find out what's going on there. No actual errors. Okay. So it didn't write anything to there. And I can already tell you, there's not going to be a community here. This is the piece it's tripping up on. Ground position, water position. Am I even writing those? Community. Oh yeah, of course we are. Ground position Y is the dimensions of where that goes in. Here. That is not community, ground position Y, and water, ground position Y. So those are getting those two values. What am I missing? What am I missing? The values are all here. Let's check. Let's check here. It should have popped something if one of these values weren't here. So I think it's getting past that. And what I want to do is I'm not going to wait for the whole thing to go right now. I'm going to stop it before it starts doing the action zones and everything. I want to get it past this part before I do anything else. Alt tag, gravity, texture IDs, guide ID. Okay, so all those look good on this side. The one we changed is publish domain. So let's make sure publish domain on this page. Publish domain. Do we have publish domain here? We have publish domain here. Did I input that into this statement? Yes, publish domain gets past there. So far, if it had a problem with any of that stuff, it would have thrown an error and it would have ended up in the part on the end. Let's see. So if it didn't throw that kind of error, what it could be is, let's check the community. Okay, the next piece it would have to be is the community class, communities, and our import, which, okay, I've got that right here. Okay, so communities class import, we're bringing in the various values. Oh, I called it domain name there, and that's probably where we have an error. No? Okay, we're calling it domain name there, but that's not what it is. It is, oh, I called it domain name here. Can't put a domain name in where there is no domain name. Publish domain. Publish domain. We're going to fix that up in the line up here too. Okay, publish domain. That's why I rename variables first and then we go through all this stuff, because I want to make sure that when we create these various parts, then we are definitely getting all the pieces in place. The other thing I could do here is I could web alias our first name to the domain name since we created our first community. If I do that, it automatically puts it as that name when we call it. So, okay, well, let's make sure it works first. Okay, so let's go ahead and wipe out the tables. Okay, drop the tables, drop. Okay, and refresh the page. Okay, save. and click this, and I put a remark in there so it didn't go past. Oh, and guess what? It did anyway. Why would it completely ignore the fact that I put in here, what'd I do? Copy action zones. I told it not to do them. It must not have updated the script, because there's no other reason that would have kept on running. But with that said, it's going through and it's doing them all anyway. Let's see if we actually get one this time. Uploading the images. Okay, and we're on buildings. It created the community. I already know by that it created the community, so let's refresh the table and refresh communities, and now we have Small Island Community with all of its pieces in place. The next step is, let's pick a building. It doesn't matter which one. We're going to do a castle, and we have an error. Okay, so this is something we didn't need in this place. Okay, this is already an error that block pass through. That isn't even a function we need at this time, so I'm going to make sure that's not being used on these pages, and that happens on okay. Okay, so block pass through. First of all, block pass through was another little tricky thing I had to do when some of my forms, when the mouse was over the other page behind it. And yeah, got a couple things going on here. So block pass through was used, and oops, don't need it there. We're going to need it over here. Find, and it's right there. So when I clicked the search, it automatically found this function too and tried to run it, which we do not need to there. Okay, find next, and that's it. So that gets rid of that one. There was one more error after that. Cannot read property 0 of undefined. Share webs line 222. So let's go to line 222. 222. And basically that's telling us the building was not found. So let's systematically go through this and see if we're getting something back. Okay, I want to see if it's bringing back any data when I call the function for the building. Right now we need to know what the building is, so let's go find out what the building is. We're going to do the same thing we did like that and make sure that we can get the building back from the other server. In this case, we're going to look for templates, buildings, where a good deal. Okay, and let's see, we got the castle home. Let's just try this one. I think that's what I called it in the page when it didn't get it. Okay, it's not showing me right now. Let's just see. I'm sure it doesn't matter which one we test it from. Let's see if we can get any of them back. And okay, so we're getting this back. Publish name, publish expire. We don't need any of that junk. Okay, let's look at that. We have, this is where I'm fetching the data from my other website, which is going to be the shared website so that everybody can share different items and download items from other people. So looking from here, okay, we have building info, name, publish name. We do not need publish date, expire status. We don't need publish host or publish domain. We don't need domain name. Create date doesn't really matter for this purpose. Okay, those values are going to all be blank anyway. Okay, so that should do that. Publish name and alt tag is good. Alt tag name is the way that comes up. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I have the building. I'm bringing back all these fields. I already know what I'm bringing back, so that stuff's all good. What I need to do is make sure that the fields that I'm trying to write here, well, actually, I'm bringing back something. Building 0. Did I screw up the way it's layered? Yes, we have response. Response is the root of the array. It's not called buildings. That's what's different. When I did communities, when I get a community back, notice I created the array communities and response. That's what's wrong. So when I did this one, I did communities and response. Then I wrote this to communities, and then I put it there. So I could actually, well, I'm only retrieving one, so that was kind of a moot point, but that would explain why I'm not having a building in the same structure. So we're going to go ahead and do it this other way. Change it to buildings and call that buildings. We're gonna put buildings here, so I'm building the buildings array, and I'm going to put it underneath the response array. So yeah, I kind of put an array under an array when I'm only expecting one value. Okay, I should rethink that and do it the other way, huh? All right. Okay, let's see. Okay, we've got those pieces in place. Okay, now I should get the buildings back the way I expect them to. You know, I'm doing something backwards because I'm tucking it in and telling it to, oh, responses buildings, but then I didn't do the response back. Okay. I should be undoing the other one instead of doing it to this one to be consistent. Does that make sense? Okay, so that should get us the building, and we should get past that step. And so let's dump the tables and go through the whole process and see. I just want to see if we can get it to a point where we're getting the process written that we have a building in place. So let's drop all those tables, and let's see what happens when I run this. Fixed a couple errors and moving forward. Okay, wait a minute, didn't do something right already, because if it dropped all the tables, why didn't it ask me for my user ID? I can tell that real quick. User ID is already there. Okay, so let's drop the tables. Oh, it would kill me if I dropped the wrong tables. I do have a lot of backups of stuff, so I'm in good shape. Okay, drop 27 tables. We're going to drop the tables. I'm going to refresh this page, and we should get that page. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, looking at this. Now we select the community, going through these pieces. Yeah, and running this stuff, I do have to say, purposely, this computer that I'm using right now that you're seeing, I do most of my development on it because I want to make sure that the program works well when I have a 4 gigabyte video card. I have 8 gigs of RAM on, no, maybe I have more RAM on this thing. I'll have to check. I probably have 16 gig of RAM on this thing. But then I do have a slower processor and different stuff. So if I can make it work on this, then I'm usually in good shape. I have another computer that is, well, it's an Alienware and it has a faster processor and everything else. Smaller screen, but I like to program on this one because if everything works here, I know everything's going to work on the other one. So now we're creating a building. Let's see how we do. And we have an error 404, page not found on building uploads. I did not create that page, so yeah, that is very smart. It knows exactly what page I didn't create yet. So where I created a page called Community Uploads. Okay, so we're almost at the end of this process. Where I created one called, well, there's Community Molds, which I'm going to need a building molds version of that. Oh, there is a building molds. I already did that one. Let's see, how did I return it? Looks good on that part, and community molds. So we have the molds done, but I have Community Uploads, which is this new one that I built. It was a little hairy to tell it to create the statement right there. So basically I wanted to write a separate statement for building ID and stuff. Now, even with, just to answer your question, Eva, even with 8 gigabyte of RAM, you should be able to run the program. That's my goal, is to make sure you can run it. And so you should be able to browse the web in 3D, no problem at all. Well, you know, just like when you're playing games, some things can run slower, some things you're not going to go to the highest graphic level or the most You're not going to turn on the highest level of shading and lighting effects or whatever else, but you're going to be able to run it smooth. That's my goal. Now, on the other side of it, though, is being able to stream and run it at the same time. That's going to be a little bit tricky with that amount of RAM. So, yeah. Oh, well, hey, if you can run those, then you just might be able to do it, but that'll be something we'll have to test afterwards. You might just be able to help me test that, so we'll find out when we get to that stage. But sometime later this month, we'll drop the site out there and we'll see what we can do. So, with that, let's see, what am I doing here? Okay, so this is the process I need. I need to create a building uploads. I'm going to drop that here. And we're going to call this one, I like to name them before I do everything else, and I want to make sure I'm putting them in the right site. And this is going to be just like community uploads, but it's going to be building uploads. And save that. Now I'm going to take everywhere that it says community and helps if I spell community with 2 M's. And replace it with building, replace all. That should knock out a chunk of this stuff. So we have community. Okay, so close out the ones I'm not using because I really don't want to open the wrong page and start typing. Okay, so that's in place. So this will bring them back once I create this version of the store procedure. So let's go through here and cool deal. And yes, I do want you to test all the stuff that I've got when I release the open source. Also, after I release the open source, or about that time, I'm also going to put the open source into my server to be my version of it, so that my hosted solution is using the exact same product that I'm distributing to everybody. I may have a couple plugins that I don't release, but that's my business. No, so no problem on that, but I do plan on hosting it like that way. You can actually run it on your own server. Open source, you can download it, run it on your own server, or you can use 3d.walktheweb.com to host your sites, which is my server. So that's the whole reason. Open source, we'll drop it out there and you'll be able to download it and run this install just like I'm doing, and create your first 3D website, create different things on it, build, do whatever you want. But that's where I'm heading. That's what I want to do with it. So that's what I'm building. Yeah. You don't know how to host your own server? I tell you what, AWS, Amazon's Web Services, they basically allow you to create an instance of a server to test out their stuff, and you can actually do it for free for a year. So, with that said, if you're interested in learning how to host your own websites, then we can work on that later on, and I'll show you how to do it, and that's actually pretty cool. But at the same time, if you just want it hosted, I do host websites, so if anybody needs anything hosted, I can host things on my server. Your own instance, I can host it on my server so that you have your own version of it. I'm comparable with everybody else. American dollars, I charge $89 a year for hosting. If you want SSL, you throw in another $89 and you got that too. Yeah, I saw the link, very cool, and no problem there. But I can host anything. So I run my own servers. I have them on AWS. So basically, yeah, basically I can host anything for you. So definitely we could work something out. Don't worry. Well, you know what? If you're testing for me, just stick with me. When I release the thing, I may set up a copy for you, and I could tell you, here's your copy, and you run with it and do whatever you want with it. So we'll talk about that, because you've been here loyal all this time, and you know, I may just host one for you. Don't pass the word around too much, but if you're testing for me, I think we can work something out. I'll take care of you, my friend. So Okay, so getting back to this, going to do one last thing before I call it a day. I want to see this process work. I'm going to go into the templates website, and there's a stored procedure for copy get uploads by community ID. I need to basically give me a blank page, and I'm going to create the buildings version of this. So I want it to SQL editor, create statement. Now I'm going to go through this real quick, and by building ID, we're going to insert a building ID. You know what? I'm going to do a find and a replace, and I'm going to find everywhere it has the word community, and I'm going to change that to building first. Okay, replace all. Now at least I'm one step closer because I know I've got to do all these. Yeah, you know it. I'll take care of you, my friend. Okay, so building molds. Okay, building. Okay, we're good on those. Now the other thing was I called it CM1. I'm going to replace those with BM for, instead of doing CM1 for community molds, I'm going to change that to building molds 1 and just replace all. Takes care of those real quick. Now these are the fields that it uses. Texture, okay, so we have all those, and we have these that are part of the building molds. That should take care of those. I can already detect I'm going to get a little issue with some of this stuff, but don't worry about that yet. When I work with these pieces of it, I'll be testing that and making some changes to this code to enhance it to work better. Okay, so this should be the stored procedure I need. I'm going to write that to the database. Now if I refresh that, we have get uploads by building ID. And now that process should find that, and it should now work. We've created this web page for building uploads, and we've created the stored procedure behind it. Okay, admin trying to connect building uploads. Okay, it tried to reach a page that it couldn't find, and then it gave me an error on the other piece. Okay, so we now have that. We now are returning data with it, and now it should be able to do something. We also have that for allow from all locations. Okay, and let's see. Now I'm going to delete what's in the database up here again. We're going to run through the test one more time. I just want to see if we get through these steps. We should be able to. I know I'm missing one piece purposely. I've created the community, and now I'm creating the building, but what I didn't do was create the connecting grid that puts that building in that community. So that's one piece that I'll still have to add after I'm done with all of this. But the idea is that we're getting past this part and one step closer. Okay, so we get a community. Let's click on the community. We're loading the process. And this is going to be the install steps. So when you get your new site, this is how you're going to do it. You're going to set your own things and just run it right up here. Basically, the way the VR works is you have two things. When you have your avatar on the screen, you can set your avatar to a first-person view, a follow view, and you can do it. You can do it without the VR headset too, though. And then what happens is, then after you set your view that you want to see your avatar or be first-person view, or follow view, or scene view, or if you're self view looking at yourself, you pick which camera you want to look at. Then you choose which type of thing you want to see it for 3D. You can do it with red and blue cyan glasses, or red and cyan glasses, so that you have the old-fashioned 3D type, or you can do a headset. But you can do any one of these that you like. So yeah, third-person view, definitely. The follow view is the third-person view, so is the scene view. So we're working on that. We can pass all kinds of views once we get this stuff built, so it's kind of cool. But the next thing is you can actually, you choose what view you want to be with your avatar, then you choose how you want to view it, which is in two-dimensional, regular computer monitor screen. You can do the red and cyan 3D, you can do different headsets, and Babylon already supports like 8 or 10 different headsets. I'm working on dragon pets for you, by the way. That's why I'm building a castle right now whenever I click on this. So let's see if it builds the castle. Let's see if we can get one out of here. But so the whole idea is that that you can choose, like if you bought the Oculus, you can choose Oculus. Now all of a sudden it works for that. If you bought a different headset, you're going to be able to choose it from the drop-down menu. Babylon already supports all those. All I have to do is turn on the camera and add it to the list. So as we test them out and as we do different things, we're going to be able to do all the different VR stuff. That's the goal. That's where we're heading, and that's what I intend to do with this. So, yeah, cool deal, huh? Cool deal. I'm with you, kind of. I can do both, but I can... yay, we got past that. Now, what that tells me is it did that without errors, and now it's basically getting past those steps. We now should have a building and a community, and this is where I'm going to have the next step go, but you're going to be choosing your avatar and stuff. I don't know why it brought up this yet, but you're going to be able to pick your thing. You're going to be able to pick your avatar, you're going to be able to set your colors and do all kinds of fun stuff with this. But currently, somewhere in the code, I have it set up, well, first let me refresh this, and I want to show that, yes, we have a community. So our community is there. We now have, oh, those are the wrong ones. These are the templates. Okay, so buildings, we now have a building. Action zones, we should have at least 6. Okay, there's more. Notice that we have custom stairs, load zone. So we have one extra one for this particular scene. Not a big deal. Okay, so that gets all those pieces. We're working on flying because I want you to be able to hop in a plane and fly around, or a helicopter. I'm going to make all kinds of fun stuff that we can use. But the whole idea is that we can. We're going to make it where you can put on a jetpack and fly around. We're going to have it where you can parachute. I want to have some fun, cool stuff, and I'm going to keep throwing things in, and then also other people are going to be able to create plugins, and we can download and drop those into our scenes. That's the whole idea, is to open up the world so that any programmer can create a plugin that works with this technology. That's the idea. So they can make things and drop them in, and you can download them. They'll be freemium, so you can get things for free, and then if people want to, they can pay for upgrades on different stuff. Depends how the programmer creates the modules, but that's the whole idea. That is the whole idea, is being able to do that. Okay, well, I survived this. I got through it. We are now creating our first building and our first community, and so it gets us through those steps. Yay, we're that far. And next I'll be cleaning up so that it walks you right into the next step, which is selecting your avatars. This screen that it shows right here, technically it bypassed a couple of things on my code, and I'm going to make sure that we get to that step. The reason is we haven't selected an avatar yet, and it gave me the default one, which is the female. So the female robotic, which is anonymous. Now, the one thing is I didn't send it past the login process because during our install, we logged in. So we should be logged in here, which gives us different options, which would be the whole 10 different avatars that I put in the system. So I need to see where the code is loading now, where it's going, and making sure that it hits that next process. In fact, I may be able to tell exactly where that is because look at all this nice cool stuff that I remarked out that we didn't tell it to continue doing. So now that we're loading the full scene, we want it to do the full stuff. Let's take that. Let's go to here. Let's make sure we're loading. Check web is the last one in there that we didn't load. Okay, now it's loading everything. Let's see where we get to. Maybe that's all it was. I just remarked out parts of the code and then didn't bother setting it in. No, it's still going to her. Okay, that's fine, but that's not the correct piece. Notice how the animations are screwed up too, because she's starting to walk even though I didn't click anything. So this process starts with selecting the avatar, and right now it's not starting there. So I need to find out where it got to in my code, and then I'm going to work on what it does next. So by the time we get done, the install process is going to walk you through, boom, boom, boom. You're going to do all your steps. When you get to avatars, you're going to be able to choose all the colors for your avatars, select your avatar, color them the way you want. You can pick different animations, so you can choose any animation you like. There's all kinds of cool stuff to do once you get to that level. But right now, we just created our first community in the database and our first building, but we didn't load that scene. So I want to load that scene, and then we can tell it to load, select our avatar and go from there. So that's what's coming up next. That's the piece I'm going to be working on probably this weekend. If you catch me online, definitely pop back in here and join me in chat like you did already. I appreciate that always. And otherwise, TGIF. Have a great Friday, and I'll catch you again real soon. Take care. Have a good one, Eva. Shout out to you.